All right, we're recording. Scott, how you doing, mate? Nice to see you.
I'm very good, thank you. Nice to see you too, Daniel. Nice to see you too, Lauren.
So, go ahead, Lauren.
Why is it important for to put businesses on the Bitcoin standard?
It is absolutely crucial to put businesses on the Bitcoin standard if you want that business to last forever. Because if your money's trending to zero and you're saving in pounds or dollars, then you're kind of spending your entire career and your entire business career filling a leaky bucket, if you get what I mean. So if you've got a hole in the bottom of your bucket, at some point it's going to drain. If you can move your business onto a Bitcoin standard, whether that be on the balance sheet, which is basically your savings account, if you like. So if you can save in Bitcoin in your business and the Bitcoin is trending up over the long term for the next 100, 200, 500 or 1000 years, then your business can last that long. If you're taking payment in Bitcoin as well, I suppose naturally you might save some of that in your balance sheet, savings account. And again, it'll last forever. So if you want your business to last forever and you want your kids who've grown up in that business to run that business, then you need to give them a good start and you need to give them a fair start. And Bitcoin in your business is that fair start. And I think it's probably important to note that as the adoption increases, it's for small business owners. So your favorite local restaurant whose kids, whose probably owners now are making grandma's recipes. Them kids are learning grandma's recipes and that will last forever. And it's for small businesses that I'm most excited about getting onto a Bitcoin standard and living forever. Does that answer your question, Lauren? Or
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, 100% it does. And with you, I'm a big champion of just getting the small, medium-sized enterprises onto a Bitcoin standard. And it's still difficult to explain it to people, and it's still so early. But yeah, we're going to get into all the work that you've been putting in behind the scenes. So, any other questions, Lauren?
Not for now. Sorry, not for now.
Okay.
not
Cool.
for now.
Anyways, thank you. Bye
All
bye.
right. Thank you. Nice to see you.
All right, mate. So I guess we should try and before we dive into exactly what you've been doing, how did you get here? Like, what was your journey? Why now are you coming on podcasts? And if you're watching on YouTube, the sunglasses are on for a reason. A little bit of
Slightly,
pseudonymity.
slightly pseudonymous. I've got a few announcements to make with my own staff over the might be next week, might be next couple of months. So yeah, I'm wearing a pair of shades at the moment, and not one of our clients has ever discussed Bitcoin with me or is aware of my passion or
Really?
obsession. Yes, truly.
So where the
Um,
passion and the obsession started somewhere, somehow.
yeah, but
Why?
that started somewhere. And why? It was just 2 points that someone mentioned to me in 2016. He said, and this was someone who was quite out there in. Not everything they said was was worth listening to. And they said there's this Bitcoin thing, and we're excited about that. It's Bitcoin, and it's this and it's this and it's this. And the two things that just struck me immediately were there's 21 million of them, and that's it. There'll never be any more. And then the other one was when you've got it and you've got your password, if you like. This is how rudimental work time. When you've got your password and you've got your Bitcoin, nobody can ever take it off you without you and your permission, and no government or any third party can stop you from transferring it. So it's shameful. My first thoughts on that. So my first thoughts on that were right. So like everyone, I was like, if there's 21 million multi-millionaires want this. And obviously the price is going to go up. And my second thought was, and I was probably 2016, I was probably just shy of mid-20s. So not some of my friends were getting married, but I was quite a long way away from that at the time. And my second thought was, well, if wives or husbands in the future are about to plan or get divorced at some point, then they're all going to buy it as well, even if it stays at £1,000 forever or $1,000 forever. They're all going to want to buy it. So price is just going to go up. And they were two things that got me straight away. And for years, I've been orange pilling people, and the more intelligent we get, the more sort of high level, and from chairman of banks I've spoke to about this subject, and none of them go, "Oh, them 2 points sound pretty interesting." They just look for the reasons that it might not work. And I was quite lucky that I got caught at the right sort of stage in life where I was like, "This sounds pretty good." So that's where my journey started, 2016. I didn't really understand it, and unluckily for me, I didn't find any good podcasts, and I didn't find good material on it. It took me a long time to really work it out. I mean, to the point where I thought I understood nodes, and I thought I might understand miners, and I had a bit of an idea of how it all worked. But until you've actually removed your Bitcoin from an exchange, set up a hardware wallet, and probably moved Bitcoin 10 times, you don't really get it. It's very difficult to understand the sort of technical side of it. And I didn't do any of that for years. I just bought it, kept it on an exchange, sent it to a wallet that was on my phone, sent it back to an exchange, that kind of thing. So that's where my journey started. And it went on from there, I suppose.
Number
There's
go
a
up.
few more key points in it. Yeah. Number went up that year, 2017. Number went up. And as we're coming towards Christmas, I remember sitting at a function at a rugby club, and one guy next to me had it, and we both thought we'd made it. Like, we've cracked life. This is the cheat code. That's it. And then shortly after that Christmas, I think, blame it on the Chinese New Year that followed. We're like, maybe it's not the maybe it's not the end game just yet. But yeah, loved it from the moment that someone told me about it. Thought, this is great.
So at that point, were you running your own business at that point, mid-20s, or were you just like employee? What was that part of your career?
Yeah, so that part of my career was probably one and a little bit years into owning my own business and setting up my own business. So I was probably riding on a bit of a high of I had very little liabilities in life and in business. And I had a good, not consistent, but a good cash income at the time. So I can talk you through how I got to there, if you like, if you need a bit of context
let's do that. Why not?
On that. But it might be easier if I summarize where it is today in a bit of a ballpark. So today, the business is an international executive search firm, and that phrase sounds purposely cool when you're speaking to clients, I think, in our industry. But the reality is, the word I don't like to use is headhunting, but effectively it's a headhunting business. The reason it's international is not because I have dreamt of having an international business. It's through necessity of over the years. The salaries in the US, for example, are far higher than the salaries in the UK. The fee levels are far higher in the US than they are in the UK. The enthusiasm for profit, for business, for good people, and for hiring good people tends to be a little bit more urgent and with a smile overseas. And I don't want to sort of downtrod the UK business market with that, but it's a lot more conservative and a lot slower pace in the UK. You've got 3-month notice periods and all that kind of thing. In the US, it'll be 2 weeks for someone who's at vice president level. So the business turns over a couple of million, makes a few $100,000. Staff wise, we're at circa 20 people. So that's where I am today. But when I discovered Bitcoin, it was probably me and a couple of us in an office, just sort of bashing my phones, if you like, and making my calls and doing all the headhunting, me doing the headhunting myself. But to get to there, the story probably to be orange pilled that quickly and get Bitcoin that quickly, there's a few different factors that happen in people's lives, isn't there? And I grew up in the northwest, in northwest England, sort of the old mining towns, and played the sports that come with that. So grew up playing rugby league, and went to a school that quite often had the police turning up at the school. Or I remember one morning coming in like, "Where was that helicopter for last night?" And it was like 4 lads in the school the helicopter was looking for. And it was that kind of environment where it was you learn. You probably didn't learn a lot about life from an academic perspective, but you learned a lot about life. And it was good fun. But my parents, I have, and I'm very fortunate in the way I was sort of raised. My mum and dad are still together now. Got a sister who's great fun and like just been a best mate through my life. But my mum's an entrepreneur who had a small business, like hairdressers. So she's working late on Friday nights and working Saturdays and all that kind of stuff, and working in her hairdressers, employing a few staff. And my dad, on the opposite end of the scale, there is nuclear engineer who's been with his firm for a very long time and has a great salary, good benefits, your healthcare, your pensions, that kind of thing. So on one end of the scale, you have like safe, reliable, steady. And on the other end of the scale, you've got my mum who's like got her own business. And literally one day it burnt down. So you're seeing that like the risks you take by being an entrepreneur, like, right, gone, business is done. And immediately she switched into like, right, work from home mode before anyone else kind of thing. So growing up as a kid, I'd watched her just adapt, start bringing. I came downstairs, it was like 15 like blue-haired women sat in my kitchen, like drinking tea. We're all, I doubt any of them are still here today, kind of thing. Like the clientele was quite an old clientele for the hairdressers. But watching her adapt and all that kind of thing sort of sets for a few of the values that you have through life. And she was quite risk on. My dad was quite risk adverse in how they both sort of made decisions on careers and money. And it works well together. I'm fortunate enough to be in a similar situation myself at the moment. My wife's got like a really good career that's steady and allows me to sort of take risks and do all that kind of stuff. But growing up, the phrase I can remember from my dad will be the likes of, money doesn't grow on trees. This is all going to pop at some point. They're lending too much money. Where are we getting this money from? Where the government are just printing money. And grew up in that environment where it's like that. That new car they've got up the street, they've got that on lease. They won't own it, and all them sort of things where you're getting an early understanding of what do you mean it's going to go pop? What do you mean with credit bubble? What? So that was growing up, and I was playing a sport at a decent level that taught you about resilience and taught you about, you're in a team for. I was in a team for, I think I was in a rugby team for 10 years and we didn't win anything. And then at 15, we got really good and we started winning stuff. And then we won the Lancashire Cup. And then we all went on to have these big moments together and all that. And it was a bit like hodling. So you'd gone through 10 years of playing for this team just getting battered, and I mean physically battered at points. But all believing that it was a right thing to stay together and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going until the success came. And I suppose some of them elements mirror what being a Bitcoiner is like, if you get what I mean.
100%, mate.
Yeah. So did all that, and then you get to the end of sort of your childhood, don't you? And you then told, right, college, all that sort of thing. So I went to college, and then I had a gap year before I went to university. And my gap year consisted of working in a factory, building wardrobes, and going to the local towns on nights out and trying to save up. And I saved up nothing. I probably even, if I'm being brutally honest, gambled quite a bit of it away on slot machines and trying to work out how to earn money on Betfair. So the year after I went to university, with no money saved up, having wasted the opportunity to have a gap year by sort of just getting drunk around the northwest of England with my mates playing rugby. Went to university, and within 3 months of being at university, was doing a quantity surveying course, something along them lines, and I was like, this is not for me. I'm not adding numbers up throughout my career. This is no. Stopped going. Luckily, I was pretty good at rugby at the time, and the coach put me on another course and gave me a couple of options, and one was like a sports-related business course. And the only reason I was at university was to play rugby, get drunk, and meet people, lots of people. And I just had a great time. But at the same time, I was working in a bar, and it was a very, very lively bar, to put it really sort of lightly. It was a lively place to work. And you were encouraged to have a good time while you're working there. And a lot of the guys who used to come in, some of them would be business owners, so I'd get to know them, and I was just interviewing people all day long, stood behind the bar. And at this moment in time in my life, I was basing pretty much every single decision I made on either Cocktail with Tom Cruise, Top Gun with Tom Cruise, Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. Whatever films were just making the decisions for me. But it was basically like I was doing whatever any 80s film with Patrick Swayze or Tom Cruise had said you should do in life. So I was working in this bar, and I was thinking, I can interview or get to know everyone in this city by working in this bar. And a lot of the guys coming in own businesses the exact same as what I own now, and they're now competitors. So they'd be coming in, and I'd be asking them how it worked, and I couldn't understand how it worked. All I knew was that they were out on a Thursday night having a great time, and out on a Friday night having a great time. And I thought, I fancy a go at that industry when I finish uni. So basically, I got to the end of university, and I had a choice between graduate scheme on a pretty decent basic salary. Like the American, if any US people are listening to it, they'll think when we speak about UK salaries that we're all mad. But it was like a 45 grand a year and a Audi company car, the Aldi grad scheme. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or remember it, but it was like the coolest grad scheme to get. And I had that, or I had an offer to go into my industry on £13,000 basic salary a year and bonuses if you're any good, kind of thing. And I'd been to this interview, and we asked everybody in the interview, like a group interview, asking people what have you done that's cool and all this kind of stuff. And it went round, and it was like, I shoot for the Olympic Great Britain team. Oh, that's pretty cool. Another lad was like, I'm the youngest person to qualify to fly a jet solo in the British military. I'm like, right, okay, these people are pretty cool. What's the coolest thing you've done? And I'm like, and I can't remember how I answered it, but I got through to final interview, and the managing director was sat there and he was like, I had my £13,000 offer in my bag. So I'm just like, right, well, I know I've got a job after today anyway. And he said, I'd like to, he said, I think you might be good at this, but I'm not going to give you a £3 million profit and loss responsibility. You've not convinced me just yet. And that's my reservation. That's the only reason I'm not giving you the role. I don't think you'll take it serious enough. And I think he got his answer, because I thought this was serious and I thought this was cool, basing all my sort of decisions based on films I've watched. I just went, well, if you don't think I'm serious enough to look after a £3 million profit and loss every month, whatever one of them is in my head, I went, there's my mobile phone. I opened it and went something along the lines of like, yes, I might have been wild at university and stuff, but you ring anyone on that phone and ask them how serious I am about my career and my life going forward from right now, and thought, this will look cool. He was like, you're okay, I'm not going to ring anyone. And I left, and my dad was like, you're going to get that job, aren't you? I knew it, you jammy bastard. Da, 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 da. All my career, I've been working my ass off to do this. You walk out of university, you lucky. We're driving home. I was like, no, I'm not taking it anyway. I'm going to go for the 13 grand one, and go into the sort of sales environment that I'm in. So I came into it, and that's how I ended up in this industry. Like, I left university and I started in recruitment, if you call it that, recruitment, permanent placement, exec search, where basically you take one person from one role who wants to move, and you find a company that'll want to take them on who does pretty much the same thing. And the other way around is a company wants someone and you find someone who does exactly what they want from a company who usually do exactly the same thing. So I started in that industry, and that's where I started. I started at a firm that had about 80 people in it, probably 25 in our office. And over that first year, if you want me to take us all the way to when I started, I'm happy to do so. But in that first year, probably the second 6 months, I became really good as a consultant, and it was just through blind enthusiasm and confidence more than anything. You know, I did back myself hugely when I was speaking to managing directors or CEOs, but probably not in the way that people imagine someone in that industry does. I wasn't like, I'm really good. It was just, I just had the sort of confidence to pick up the phone, get them on the phone, say one thing that got them interested, which was, I've got someone who works for you, you know, your direct competitor who's selling this much. Would you be interested in having a conversation? And as soon as they say, well, might be, just ask the right questions. So just keep them on the sort of momentum of, okay, well, you know, what's your business doing? What's this? What's this? And I just cottoned on that all you needed to do really to be successful in that industry was show a genuine interest in what the other person did, ask them the right questions until you really, really understood what they do, what they want to do, and then they will. That is the buy-in. Doesn't matter what you say, or, you know, doesn't matter what your credentials are. Just ask the right questions, and I was getting really good results. And through that first year, we're coming towards the end of the first year, and I thought I'm gonna beat all the other blokes who are in here who've been doing it for quite a while. I've got a chance. And I had this client who had cold called and then over the 3 months placed quite a few people with him, and he was in a really niche industry. And he kept sort of saying, come and join me. Come and join me. When are you going to come and join me? And I kept saying, like, unless it's 100 grand, I'm not fussed. Bear in mind, I was on 13. So I knew I didn't want to go and join him, and I knew I didn't want to work in that industry. So I thought I may as well say the most brash thing to stop him from asking me anymore to join him. I was 22, probably 23 years old, living in a flat with my mate. that was like appalling conditions and driving my car 100 yards to the train station and getting my train into work and skipping on the train without getting a ticket and steaming through the barrier in a suit because nobody ever asked you for a ticket if you were wearing a suit. So I wasn't in a great financial position when I was sort of knocking this role back, but I was enjoying what I was doing. And he kept asking me. And one day he just randomly rang me. I was in like a sandwich shop or something. He said, everyone in my company's been trying to get hold of this guy. His company's in difficulty for going into liquidation. I want to buy the business, but I want to buy it today. And I want to rescue the customers that they've basically taken deposits off and are not delivering the product because they're repeat customers. So he would get them forever by doing something like that. And I said, oh, give me 10 minutes. And I found out this guy had like a villa in Portugal. And I rang up to rent the villa and managed to get on the phone to his missus. And then I said, look, I've come through a really roundabout way here, or a sly roundabout way, if you want to quote one of the, I've come through as a sly roundabout way, but the reason I'm actually calling is a positive one. And I want to speak to your husband, not because of the situation of business in, but because I have someone on the other end of the line who wants to buy it today and take the issue off your hands. And got them all on the phone and he bought the company. I was like, I don't know how that's worked. I've just put them both on the phone. So I'm in the office like I'm hero. I don't just recruit and headhunt people. I'm putting deals together now and I'm buying companies. Like I'm doing really well. And he said, this guy was like, I'll tell you what, Scott, I know you keep saying you don't want to work for me, but come on holiday with me and my wife this weekend. Bring your sort of ex girlfriend at the time. Bring them over and let's. I'm only saying that so no one thinks it was a weird proposal from him or an indecent proposal from him. He said, "Come over." So I said, "Okay." So I said to the guys in the office, I was like, "I need Friday off because I'm going to a client meeting." I'm like, "Oh, okay." They didn't know I was jumping on a plane and flying to Malaga Airport. So gets to Malaga Airport and like a guy just pulls up in like a Jaguar convertible and sort of hands me the keys and I'm like 23 years old, turned up and I'm like, cheers. And he said, hotel's in the sat nav. Take yourself to the hotel. He's booked a room for you and your partner in the hotel and he'll drop you a text about lunch this evening or whatever it was. So I'm like, what is going on here? And he took us out on his boat that had the most Fiat name you have ever heard. I'm not sure whether naming the boat would dox him, if you like. But think of sort of Spare Cash being the name of his boat, but funnier and cooler. So he takes out on the boat and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, he wants me to take over his business when I'm a little bit older because his son's not as interested in business and stuff. And a couple of days in Spain with them, at the end of it, he said, here's your job offer. Here's your salary. Here's your company car. It's for Jag I've given you. And here's my plane. So he just had like a picture of his twin engine plane. And he said, if you accept, I'll send you to do your pilot's license. So I'm like 23 years old and I'm like, probably 23 at the time. I'm useless for dates, but around about that age, I'm like, hold on a minute. I'm accepting this job because I'm going to get to do my pilot's license. And I got to do it in Spain. But I thought if I'd just go, yeah, I really want this job, he's going to think he's sort of played his hand to get me on board. So I sat there like with a straight face, like, it all looks good. But and luckily that month I'd had a big bonus from my other job. So my pay slip added up to more than 100 grand a year that month. Only that month. So I said, like, there's my pay slip. I'm not talking shit when I say it needs to be over 100 and that salary is nowhere near that. So if you double the bonus, then if I perform, it'll get to there. So it wasn't like an outlandish salary or anything he'd offered me, but he'd given me like the bells and whistles all around the edge of this salary. And he said, yeah, we'll double your bonus. And I was like, right, okay, accept. Like, he feels satisfied with the outcome. I now feel satisfied with the outcome. I would have jumped at it anyway, but I've gave him that feeling that, yeah, it's okay, it's a good deal. So took the role and got started and was supposed to be sort of buying companies, and we ran out of steam pretty quickly, to be honest. Like, you get one or two, and he had mass enthusiasm for things, but realistically, you can't just. He was a SME owner, majority shareholder. You can't just go out on a sort of corporate, like, private equity rampage buying companies. We had some fun buying a couple and getting them integrated. But ultimately, I had nothing to do after that point. Sort of sat on my hands, and it was depressing. I was just getting a basic salary that was good and a nice car to go to a pub in. I'd obviously had 3 months at the start of that job just doing my pilot's license in Spain, which was nuts. But the job just wasn't fulfilling. You know, every month you know what you're going to get. If you have a savings account with fiat money in it, every month you know it's going to go down a tiny, tiny little bit, and that's quite depressing. It was like there was no hope that I could have a big month and it would just go, right, you've done really well. So I decided to set up by myself, and I'd set up. I set up on just like an evening. I rang a candidate and said, "Yeah, I want to move." I rang a client and said, "Yeah, I want to see him." And they seen each other the morning after, and it was like a good fee. I was like, "Well, I may as well just do this for the rest of my life. Like, this is a bit more exciting, a bit more fun." So I just said to him, I said, "Look, I've done this last night. We've spoke yesterday, so it'll be a few days later. We spoke yesterday. We've made him an offer. I've done this fee. So what I'm proposing is you keep paying my basic salary. I keep the company car. I keep doing whatever you need me to do when you need me to do it. But what I will do is I'll give you half of everything I bring in. So what I might be is free for you. I might even be profitable for you rather than a cost. But what you're doing for me is giving me the chance to set a business up whilst working for you. And if it goes well, and this doesn't go well with yourself, is not enough for me to do continuing into next year, and I can just move on." And he did. He was just an awesome bloke, like, just seen things the right way. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm happy for you to do that." So I did it, and then we sort of split up on like a New Year's Eve or something over like it's like I'm ready to go, and you'll be okay as well. And I just started in the kitchen. So I just started sort of kind of alluding to having a board that needed to make decisions, because turning up at clients' sites when you're 25 to negotiate, it was like, unless there's a mystical, "Oh no, I need to go and have a conversation with someone else before I can sign that off," and you're on the back foot as a young guy. So I started it like that, mid-20s, and then it was probably a year after that of like getting some good fees, buying a stupid car, buying a couple of really nice watches, and then 6 months later being told you have to pay loads of tax, and then having to sell one of the watches and then sell the car. And I was like, all right, so business isn't as fun as I thought it was going to be. And it was that first bit where you're like, this is a leaky bucket. Everything I bring in, the government are asking for more money. I didn't have any liabilities. I wasn't like, it was my Wi-Fi and my phone bill and my laptop. There was no monthly cost to the business at that stage. And then all of a sudden I was being hammered for, I was saying to the accountants, I'm like, "What do you mean I've made profit? Like, I can see that on your profit and loss there that I didn't quite understand at the time. It says I've made profit, but I can assure you the bank account has got no money in it. Like, it's, comes in, I've paid myself some. And so I started realizing that the bigger it gets and the more you do, the more liabilities you create and the more pain you sort of end up putting yourself through as a business owner. But I went down that route anyway and started employing people, and I'd had a client quite quickly say, "Oh, how do I get that fee cheaper?" And I just said, "Oh, give me an office for free if you want." And he said, "Yeah." So I ended up with like an office where I could fit quite a lot of people in it, and I wasn't being asked to pay for it. Looking back, the fee was a lot more than that office would have cost. But at the time, I thought I was getting a great deal. And I watched him get his business taken off him by a very famous person in the UK who takes businesses off people quite aggressively in retail. You can guess who I mean.
Why did they do that? Just the classic monopolist.
Yeah. I really don't know the details of it. I just know that he took a loan from them. And then they'd sort of, I think they'd kind of set him up, said, and I think that's how he might operate. He's like, here's a few million quid. We want to grow your business and want to go massive with you. And then whoever he's giving the money to might have ulterior motives themselves. Let's say they need the money for a divorce, or they need the money because they need whatever it is. And then I think he leaves it a few months, 6, 12 months. And then overnight, rinses through the finances, proves that they're illiquid, and then put an injunction on them and just took the business off them. I don't know how it all necessarily works, but it was an overnight sort of turning up, locks on the doors situation. Wow. Yeah. And I think he'd been quite smart in that he'd put me in that building because I was the only other business in that building. So there was an excuse for me to say, can you take the locks off the doors? And kind of, without saying too much about, he still had access to the building. But seeing that of a coalface and seeing lawyers rip through there, trying to get into my office, which obviously I was defending as I lease this office, it's my office, trying to get into my office to search it for bugs. And yeah, like full steam, coalface, aggressive corporate takeover. I'm like, this room's not bugged. Or I hope it's not. And they were sort of saying, pass us your phone, like serious lawyers turning up and like, oh, just pass us your phone. We just need to put a code in your phone, so that your phone doesn't interfere with us checking the rest of the offices. And I'm like, no, you're okay, thank you. So that day I had to go and find another office and actually pay for something for a change. So I went and found one, got the office, and that's when it started to become a real business. We started employing people like 2000. That was probably 2016. So probably a wild year, and then into that, and then finding out about Bitcoin. And I just didn't find out enough. But
mate, well, that's a lot. That is a nice setup. And we'll have to talk at length over a beer at some other stage. I know we didn't get a chance to talk too much in Madeira, but yeah, there's a lot of overlapping stories there. I know, like recruitment. And
I think you've done a stint, haven't you?
I did, not long, but when I exited, it very similar business to what I was already doing with foreign exchange broking. You're just putting people together. You're just connecting people, and it's like the basic skill is just shut up and listen, right? Like any good salesman, just shut up and listen, and ask. Just you can get what you need with 5 questions, and then you can start, dipping into your network and figuring it out. But yeah, I did it when I left foreign exchange. I did go into a recruitment business for 6 months to do banking and finance, help them set up a little banking and finance section there because I had all of the contacts in Singapore, tiny space. And so I saw the inner workings of it. And it's tough work, man, like really tough work.
Brutal.
It is. Like, you're on the phones, like, and you have all these KPIs, how many phone calls have you made, outbound, inbound, how many manager names have you added, how many candidates have you qualified, how many references have you added to the database. It's a churn, a real
you sound like you could still do it, Daniel.
Yeah. It's what we need, and this is what I love about Nathan at Bitcoiner Jobs. I'm sure you've met. If not, you have. You
haven't met.
Do.
No.
Right. Okay. Because he came from the fiat recruitment side as well, but now he does Bitcoiner Jobs for Swan, and so he brings all of his expertise, and he's just trying to find the plebs and get them into Bitcoin only companies, because that's what we're going to need going forward, right? And so
Yeah.
what I'm excited about, it sounds as though you're looking for some kind of exit over the next 2 to 5 years, and your own experience, you can bring that. But it seems to me that you're passionate about is getting other businesses onto a Bitcoin standard, and helping them understand the why it's so important. So if that guy that you leased that office off, if he had his business on a Bitcoin standard, that wouldn't have happened.
Oh no, and in that area, if you had his business on a Bitcoin standard, it'd have been the first as well. But the theory of what you're saying, of course, it'd have been, well, it'd have had an extremely resilient, strong balance sheet. And I think that's tough to get in that sort of high volume retail market. But yeah, I am passionate about getting businesses onto a Bitcoin standard. And
How have you been
yeah,
going
I
about
think
it? Like, what's been the way that you've been approaching it and thinking about it?
I think the best person I've seen for, like, there's so many good people in the UK, and I'm thinking UK focused here. Albeit my business is always overseas. And when you mention an exit, I think I'll forever be. I'd like to forever run that business, but over the last year, maybe I've just had more time to actually work on the business, and the managers and the consultants. I'm at the stage now where I'm confident over the next few years they're going to be able to run that themselves with me as more of a coach and an advisor and as a mentor in a different sort of role than day to day in there. So the time when you're asking how am I getting business onto a Bitcoin standard, I don't think I would necessarily say I have been particularly successful at it. I think there's people in the UK like your Ashley Giles
Yes.
and people like that who are just absolutely brilliant at getting the small businesses onto Bitcoin standard. For me, it's something I want to do, and I want to find out how and where I fit into doing that more proactively. Because at the moment, I am in a sly roundabout way speaking to every business owner I know personally, not like clients ringing them up saying, "Hey, client, can I just talk to you about this?" But people I know who own companies, they're the ones who I'm saying, like, I'm out for lunch every day this week with someone who doesn't really know what's going to hit them. So if I take yesterday, for example, I got it's two bankers, and for one of the banks that like have real people in them and real relationship managers that one not like one of the big ones. And for years I've known them because I said I would like to be banking with you in like 2021 when I had a bit of time to look at all my business systems. Everyone had a bit of time to look at business systems, didn't they? So I was like, right, who's the best bank I could be with? They are. So I met these two guys in 2021. I was like, here's my business. And they're like, got to the end of it. I'm like, we like you, but you're too small. Okay. And then every year I've emailed him saying, here's where we're at now. It was where you said. And then they go, no, now you need to be there. I'm like, okay. I'll speak to you next year then. And then I was like, right, Bitcoin's at the stage now where I still have to. Bitcoin's at the stage now where I still have to worry, and everyone still has to. I'm like still got energy to like, right, got to drive business forward. I'm not like sitting on a beach drinking cocktails. But at some point over the next 12 months, you kind of think that that risk aspect's going to dissipate slightly over the next 12 to 18 months, even if it balloons to 300 and goes down to 100 or whatever it is. If you've been in it for that period of time, you kind of got your safety net and your resilience financially. So I thought now maybe it's time for me to actually give them the real story here. So I brought two bankers to a lunch, and I had one either side of me yesterday. And I've made sure that in the restaurant, I know I'm sat in like a corner, like some kind of don with these bankers coming in to meet me. They sit down like, how's business going? How's this going? How's that going? We catch up. And then I just sort of went, well, if I said the real reason I've asked you to both come meet me, I went, if I said the halving is coming, would it mean anything to either of you? And one of them went, no. And then the other one went, Yeah, I know what this is. It says this is Bitcoin. It halves, doesn't it, next week? I was like, what do you mean it halves? You're like, oh, the Bitcoin gets halved or something this week. I was like, well, where should we start? But I then just got them in a situation where I'd created a bit of interest in them and just took them through pretty much. I started from where they would need me to start, which was the basics of the top 6 points of Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin as a treasury asset and as something that they will at some point lend against, but like with salt, pepper, and glasses on the table. I'm sort of saying like, so here's you're the bank. Let's say you've got funders who are giving you the money to loan out, and then you've got the owner of the Bitcoin, and they give you, picking big numbers for these two, like they give you £1 million worth of Bitcoin, and you lend out 500,000 to them, and then the risk and all that kind of thing, and the margin call, and they just got it straight away. So after a couple of hours eating and drinking with them two yesterday, they asked me if I'd brought 2 printouts, luckily, of something I'd just drawn up for another person in banking who I was trying to orange pill. And they asked for both of them proactively at the end of the move, like, do you mind if we take them back? I was like, no, you can take them. I don't think it's got my name on anywhere. So, but don't leave them lying around your office. And he went, if I left it lying around my office, no one would know what it was anyway. We'd probably shred it. I was like, well, I've got them too. I sent them some Bitcoin as well in the meal. I got them to get the phones out, download Wallet Satoshi, and sent them like £1 each,
Right.
like a few thousand sats or 1,000 sats or whatever it is. And then other businesses, it's just the high net worths, like chairman of a bank I've just randomly bumped into on a safari. And if you're on a safari with me and you're he's recently left that bank, that I'll say he's recently left, but he's still got board positions in other places. But if you're stuck in a safari with me, you are getting it, especially if you're a ex-chairman of a bank. But when he told us what he did, and I'm going, so what do you mean you work in banking? I don't know. What sort of role? Across, Europe, Middle East, Africa. What sort of level? All right. So what was your title then? Wow, it's a pretty strong title. And this is a bit of a rabbit hole, this, Daniel, but you know Maurizio, don't you, from Leiden?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at the time last year, I was trying to make sure I can sort of what's the word? Prevent taxable events happening. It would be better for me to borrow against my Bitcoin to prevent taxable events happening, like when it comes to directors' loans from your business, that kind of thing. So I've been desperately looking for a way to do it, and I couldn't find one. So I'd wrote out a business plan to actually set up what eventually I found, which is like a Debify or a Ledden or something like that. But I couldn't find any. And Debify's recent, isn't it? Like it was before they were announced. And Ledden, I just assumed I couldn't use because they're over in Canada or whatever it is. So, but I wrote this business plan out serious as you could, and I'd spoke to people about getting my regulatory stuff through and all sorts of things with multi-chain things and all that. And I'd spoke to as many people as I could. And now I've just dropped on. I'm on my honeymoon. I'm on a safari, and the guy who's come over to my table while I'm having breakfast with my wife, because I've been having a laugh with this guy the night before in the bar, my missus went, he wants to come and have a chat to you. He keeps trying to pipe into your conversations. I was like, yeah, all right. He's come over to introduce himself. He's telling us all this. And in this one conversation, while he's stood up with his missus and I'm sat down on my breakfast, I've got all this information about his career and found out he's just recent chair of a bank. And as he's about to turn around and walk off to enjoy his safari for the day, my missus was looking at me like, you can't see my eyes now, but like, do not, don't do it. Not here. And I went, name. So I'm thinking about, I'm currently thinking about getting a banking license. Do you think you could give me 10 minutes or something later on today? And his face was like banking license. Like, yeah, banking license. I'm looking to set up a bank. And he was like, 6 o'clock, meet me at the bar and we'll go through it. But you need to think why you need it and what you need it for. I'm like, oh, I've already got all that. Don't worry about it. I hadn't brought the plan with me, but I sketched it out on paper in front of him. And then he didn't really get it. And then I went to Orange Pill and I talked him through. But he was at volatile, not backed by anything, really rudimental stuff. And I kind of had a bet with him that I was like, well, here's the events that are happening. Obvious one was 11th of July, that ETF's going to be approved. And he was like, well, whether it does or it doesn't necessarily mean. I'm like, wait, Larry says it does. And he's like, yeah, but Larry, he's going to make the fees off it. So I'm like, he's not going to put his reputation on that. And we're having this conversation. And he wasn't dismissive of it at all, which I think if you get to the highest level conversations, they're not dismissive. If you're at the sort of lowest level conversations, they're not dismissive. It's that middle ground, like the IQ barbell, that's tough to like get people's heads around it. And he spoke to me since the ETF got launched. He's had a conversation with me since and mentioned it. So I think it resonated with me. It stuck with him, but probably ruined my honeymoon. No, it didn't. But yeah, he was stuck with me. But yeah, so I mean that's the 2 examples, both related to banking. But in general, it's like restaurants, bars. I'm consistently with this talking to this bar group about it. But I've got quite a decent. We've got quite a lot of sites, and I'm trying to get them to. I was trying to get them to put their bar on to accept Bitcoin at the Nottingham festival that got arranged. So they've got one of them bars where one of their types of bars in Nottingham, and didn't manage to get it over the line because I probably gave myself about a 1 week running room to do it. But they're open minded, so I'm thinking maybe set up a meet in my city and on the basis they get their bar accepting it and sort of get a bit of a. I like to do like a Bitcoiners bring someone who's Bitcoin curious, so you can sort of talk them through it. If you like, and actually onboard people or orange pill people rather than it just being Bitcoiners who are Bitcoiners meeting.
There is a lot of great work going on in the UK. You got the Bridge to Bitcoin guys. You've got Hashley out there doing his thing.
Yeah, it's amazing business.
Yeah, and well, it's all voluntary as well, right? And now you've got David is starting Musket.
David Parkinson at Musket. And I've been looking for where can I get involved in businesses. So I spent the weekend with David Parkinson in Madeira, and so obviously I've seen the system in action. I think everyone who's met him has seen the system in action. It's just like looking into the future when you see him do it, and you're like, all right. It's like the first time you receive sats, and like, we know it could be this simple, but now everyone's going to see how simple it could be. And his business is phenomenal. And I think disclosure, when I got back, I said, I'm going to be doing this anyway. Like I'm going to be going, I'm always trying to get people to accept it. I'm not quite as prolifically successful as Hashley, but I'm always going to be doing it. I said, and it's a bit of a hobby, David. So can I put some money in and have some sort of skin in the game so I can just do it and know where to point them? And he said, yes. Yeah, so I've put the, a little bit into investing in that business, and that allows me to have a conversation with just a little bit more fun than looking mad. I think he's trying to explain to people why you're doing it, isn't it? You're like, what you have nothing to do with this business. Like, no, I do. I have put a little bit into this business.
What's so how did you get
amazing business?
How did you get your own business onto a Bitcoin standard? Was that easily done, or you've got some red tape to?
It was easy for me because if I was like, if I was a restaurant, a bar, or online sales, or whatever sales, then I would immediately think, if I found them or whatever, Musket, here's a terminal, I take the payment, and I can do what I want with Bitcoin. For me, like our invoices at each consultant will make 1 or 2 placements a month. So there's 1 or 2 invoices per person going out. So it's not like you want to ring that client and say, can you pay in Bitcoin? Albeit I'd love to do that now. But at the time it was 2000 and Like I'd built the business up and I'd moved it, and the way I was putting it on the balance sheet was simply just buying it through. Do you want me to name companies? I'd be happy to, because it'd been good.
Go for it.
Coin Corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was buying it through Coin Corner. And when I say buying it through Coin Corner, I was buying it through a different business to my main operating business. So set up a business that's a special purpose vehicle, have that own a few shares in your main operating business. So if you take yourself to the 20% tax threshold, if you like, most business owners will probably do something similar to that. Take themselves to the 20% tax threshold, and then whatever the rest of the money that they would want to pay themselves, try and keep it within the limited company and reinvest it in growing the business or whatever it is, or reinvest it in an asset like buy the building or whatever it might be. And I was thinking, well, what I want to do is move the money from the operating business to a special purpose vehicle and just purchase Bitcoin in that special purpose vehicle as like an investment for that business. But I can always move it back to my main operating company if I need to, or I can loan against it, borrow against it, and put cash back into my main company if I need to. So the staff and the business is resilient, but it's risk off in that if the government changed the regulations from 2021, I think was the first time I started buying in business. If the government changed the regulations, it's not risked my main business and the people who work for my main business and all of that, if you get what I mean. I was a little bit worried that all of a sudden some regulation might come in, and I thought I'll do it risk off. So to do the first Bitcoin on the balance sheet for me, I wanted to make sure that it was nowhere near my main business's balance sheet. So I made a new business that owned some shares in my main operating company, and then I would just take dividends to that business, buy the Bitcoin, just hodl, and that was it.
And you just did that with like a Coin Corner business account.
Yeah, so I got a Coin Corner business account, and this was way before Coin Corner were like as easy as it is now. So to do that, I had to set up another business. Then I had to set up another bank account, and I went through Starling, Metal, Monzo, Revolut. So I didn't want the money ever going from my main business's account to Coin Corner because I was terrified of debanking and I'm just turning my banking off. And I've got a responsibility for all the staff. And you feel when you're running a business out of it, you've got responsibility for their mortgages, their rents, their lives, everything. So the last thing I wanted to do was risk my banking. So I was moving it through 1, 2, 3, 4 accounts, then to Coin Corner or whatever it might be. And the accountants are looking at me like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, this is what I'm doing. It's going through that one, that one, that. Why? Because I might be debanked. And they're like, well, if it's not illegal, why would you be debanked? And you're like, it feels illegal when you're doing it. At that time, it felt nuts. So you'd be buying it, and then I'd be taking it to cold storage. And security aspect of Bitcoin, it is worth pointing out, I have multi-sig cold storage, and you'd have to, rub my eyeballs, rub my fingers, and all that kind of stuff to rob me. But at the time, it was probably more rudimental, and it was just like you're separating passwords and your ledger, and they're sort of scattered into different safety deposits and all that kind of stuff. And it was a bit like amateurish in that way I was doing it. But all I was doing was hodling, so it just didn't bother me. As long as I woke up every morning, opened my phone, and it was still there. So I was buying through that business, and then if you can remember, I'm sure we'll all remember that the price was like there, and then it started going. I don't know if I'm doing that the right way around on the screen or not, but it was going down. Yeah. And I remember when it was going down, I'd started buying on the way up. I think it was. I never get my dates right on my years, but I think I was buying on the business balance sheet in the other business that I'd set up, a special purpose one, I was buying on my way up and daily buying. And then it's coming down, I was buying on my way down. And you're like, you only you only expect to buy so much, don't you? When you start out, you're like, keep buying. And the only people who knew were my PA and my accountants. And PA would like has helped me out so much in life and is such like someone who I trust so much. So I've had the conversation with her and sort of orange pilled her into this is my strategy. And even she's probably looking at the the dollar cost averaging going up while the price is going down. Like, no, more. So you guys is where we go for more, thinking it's going to recover quick. And I suppose what a lot of business owners in the UK who maybe have got it on the balance sheet might wonder is how do they benefit at some point? So I set up another business to do similar with because I thought I'd been advised by tax advisors that, well, if you've got all this in there, what you could do is you could buy it off your business when the price is low, and then you can members voluntarily liquidate. And I haven't actually done that. But at the time, I was thinking I need to keep that option open because if your business has bought it and it's been buying at 60, or let's go round numbers 50, and it drops down to 10, and you personally buy it off your business, you over the business has lost, and you owe the. And I'm not a tax advisor, so if anyone's listening to this, check because I'm useless with accountancy and tax. But let's say you've bought it off your business for far less than your business bought it for. Your business has made a loss, and you'll be taxed on either the income amount, if you like. Say you've took 50 grand of it out, you'll be taxed that it's 50 grand of income, or if your members voluntarily liquidating, that company doesn't owe anyone any money and there's nothing gone on in that company other than you're buying Bitcoin, then you pay 10% tax for entrepreneurs relief. So someone advised me all of this kind of stuff, and I said, "Well, get the paperwork set up to do it," but I've just not done it, and I don't think I kind of need to because over them few years, this year's the first year I've bought Bitcoin on the main operating company. And after the ETF got approved, I just thought, you know what? I'm having conversations with bankers and stuff. Or it's not often I've lent money in the business. When I started the business, it was just in the kitchen, and then a few years where you're building it up. When I moved to Leeds, and I'll tell you a bit where I was seriously orange pilled in a minute. But you're kind of dancing around the subject with people all the time. They're like, "Oh, your balance sheet looks good," and you're like, "Well, it doesn't look exactly like that now because the assets I own have dropped in price recently." And you don't want to be like, "I've got Bitcoin on it," because you just think that's the end of the conversation. If you ever need like funding to purchase a building or move offices, or you need credit to lease capital equipment, and that's probably the scariest thing for a lot of business owners. I think going onto a Bitcoin standard is losing the relationships with people who might asset finance for them. Like if you're a builder and you're about to buy 5 cranes, and you're asset financing it, and then you have to hand over all your accounts, and we go through them like a fine tooth comb on your management accounts and stuff, and they're asking you questions, and unless you're pretty upfront and you say, "I've got Bitcoin on my balance sheet, would you still work with me?" then you might be wasting your time doing it, or risking not being able to do it and having like a cash clog or sort of hiccup in your business. Do you get what I mean? So I started putting on my main operating company this year because I firmly believe that this year the stigma will probably start to fall from the financial institutions around it, if you get what I mean.
Oh man, and it has to. Like it's just ridiculous that it's still there. And
Just gonna keep going at them with it.
The UK has just been an absolute shit show for that in the last 18 months to 2 years. And
Yeah, UK's been self-destructive, self-harming.
yeah, completely.
It's sad to watch.
So at what point then you said something happened that you get completely orange pilled, and then everything started changing for you, and it had to go on the business balance sheet, and
Yeah.
you become this kind of orange pill warrior, and there's always an element to kind of philanthropy when we're doing the orange pilling, right? And like, to go back to
Yeah.
what we started, what you were saying to Lauren at the very beginning of the show is like, you want to be able to get as many small to medium sized enterprises onto a Bitcoin standard. Like, there's nothing tangible in it for us that are doing that, but we do know it's going to protect that business, and going forward it's going to just improve society. That's
Yeah. It drives the right ethics, morals, values, everything. And I played played rugby all my life. I've been to university. There'll be actions and events and behaviours that I've displayed over years that people would probably say weren't the right morals, ethics, and values. And I still like a good night out. That's a high time preference. Let's get absolutely blasted. But just in general, like you say, it's just put him on there. It drives right values, and it drives right behaviours. And it feels like you're having conversations where if you get it wrong, um, worst case scenario, they get orange pill, they buy, it falls, they have a very, very stressful time, they sell, worst case. But as long as you're there to advise and coach and mentor and sort of say, look, you just gotta. I worry that you orange pill people and you put them in a difficult financial position by doing so. That's terror. But the bigger terror is that you watch your family, your friends, and all the businesses around you all slowly sinking on the Titanic while you're screaming at them from a lifeboat, and we're all kind of shouting back, like, "It's okay, the music's still on." I know, but it's sinking. So yeah, tough, tough. But
Was
you ask
there
about, go on.
I was going to ask, when like MicroStrategy announced, was that a big moment for you, like a realization of like, holy shit?
Yeah. I think that was the second one. So it was first discovering, buying, dicking around with it. And like, I remember selling it in 2000 and was it falling in 2018? I can't remember. Or was it? Yeah, it might have been. And I remember selling it one day thinking, I'm going to sell some of this to pay for something, but I'm only going to do it because, and in my head, this sounds quite like arrogant, but I'm sure Bitcoins have thought this before. I'm going to sell it because everyone else is too thick to get the head around this yet. So it's going to carry on going down anyway, and I'll be able to buy it in the future, but I don't need to worry about people getting it. So that's where I'd left off with Bitcoin. And over the years from 2018 to 2020, I'd been speaking about it with friends. And I remember saying to my friends, like, I've got a WhatsApp that's good. And the WhatsApp messages in 2018, it's going, I've been thinking more about this, Mrs. Lads who are still not into Bitcoin now. And I'm going, think about Russian oligarchs and think about people who are doing this and think about people doing, they're all going to need this. And then at the end of it, I've also thought of this idea like a dog B&B, like Airbnb, but you can just send your dog with people who like dogs and have got good reviews. And the first response in the group was, I like the dog Airbnb idea. I'm still looking at it today and I'm like, I can't believe I've explained Bitcoin to them. All these different use cases and then said, what about this dog Airbnb? So I like the dog Airbnb idea. So through that period I was talking about it, but then that moment when I really sort of got orange pilled was I moved my office to Leeds, March 2020. So I packed
Lockdown.
up the van. We're hearing clients saying we can't finish these interviews, we can't do these final meetings, and I'm thinking money's disappearing, all the fees are dropping, but no one in the UK knew. So we drove down the motorway like normal on the Friday night, filled the new office with all our tables, and like my longest serving colleague, he's helping me unload the van. My missus is helping me unload the van. We get the office set up. And we're like, right, it still needs fitting out. And then coming on the Monday, and I think that was the week. I can't remember what exact days it was where it was like, bump, lockdown. I was like, I've just moved into a new office in a city centre that's ready to kick on, and you're throwing this at me this week. And I remember I didn't think there'd be any help. I honestly thought, how do I look at this situation? I thought every big business in this city is now on fire. Who does what I do? I'm thinking if there's going to be good people leave them businesses who need roles, and as long as I can or we can survive through this period as a business that's resilient and that's still there, then we're going to come out the other side with lots of good people wanting to join us. Just hold steady, Scott. So I got all the stuff in and I sold all that day. I didn't sell it. I was hiring it, I think. I had like a nice BMW. And I sent it back that day, got my deposit back for it, because I'd always wanted to keep liabilities off the business. So I hired the cars instead of like committing to a lease or whatever. So luckily I sent it back that day. And I rang my mate who had a second-hand car dealership and I said, what's the cheapest car you can possibly get your hands on today? And he said, I've got a Ford Focus that's 230 quid. It's a write-off. He said, it doesn't line up. It's been painted with a paintbrush on the front, but it's got its MOT. And I'll have it. So I went and got it. I drove to the offices and I parked it outside the offices. And then I did this like speech where I'm thinking, right, I need to hit a bit of humor, but I also need to give them the seriousness of the situation. So I gave them the whole like, if you remember that Top Gear episode where like the world stopped spinning, we're off the world here, all that. Basically, I gave them a serious speech about like, that's my car outside. I am not taking a penny out of this business until this is over, or as much as I possibly can do that while surviving. That's for me to do, and I want to make sure that you guys have all got the best opportunity to get through this with us and stage right. But it might mean that we all have to look at sacrifices. And I got to the end of that meeting, and all the staff just basically said, "Don't pay us any of the bonuses you owe us until this is done, and don't pay us our pensions until this is done." Like, we've all had a chat. We're happy with that. We want to kick on. And I'd agreed sort of 6 months free rent to take the office. So I knew that I was managing just for salaries. So I was all over collecting my cash in from clients who owed us and everyone was acting really nice in this period. Like, you seen that people were like, we'll make sure you're paid. But I was thinking, if this goes on for a long time, we're done. And then on the Friday, that like last day everyone was allowed to sort of be outside. On the Friday, we're in the pub, and Rishi Sunak came on the TV. I think it was Rishi Sunak, and he gave this speech, and he said something like, everyone who's in a role, or whatever, will be given furlough, and that will be rolled out next week. And I was sat there, and everyone was cheering in the pub, like staff in the city centre, like, yay. And I was thinking, one, there's going to be a get out clause for this, and I'm not going to be allowed. This is for big businesses, not for me. But two, if that's real, he has just opened Pandora's box, and he has just said to the entire country, which every other president was doing and prime minister at the time, do not ever worry. If we're in an economic crisis, we can actually just print as much money as we want to make sure you're happy and you can survive. And I was sat there, I was like, I cannot believe he's just said that. This is Bitcoin's moment. And I was like, what is the price of Bitcoin now? And it was like 3,000. And I think I sold at 5. So I was like, great idea. And it was like 3,000 or something at the time. I can't specifically remember when it all went on, but it was about that. And I was like, that's the moment. Like, it's the moment. Kind of been waiting for them to show the cards here, and they have. Other people are going to get this now, and the money printing. And I just couldn't believe they were doing it. So I was having a conversation where I was like, people are dead happy about it. And I was like, people are taking bounce back loans who are not, don't need them for staff. Like, and people doing stuff that I was thinking at the time, everything you do right now is going to be recorded in history, and they are going to come back and they are going to go through every person's stuff with a fine-tooth comb. So do everything right, a furlough right, bounce back loans of if you're owed one and it's that much, get everything nailed down because they're going to come heavy for business owners after this. And other people were going wild, and you're seeing it happen. And I just don't think they have sort of come for them. So it's like a double down on the like, they're just proving that it doesn't matter that much to him. But it was that moment when Rishi Sunak gave furlough when I was like, this is Bitcoin's moment. And then later on, I watched Michael Saylor, and I think a guy was called Eric. It might be Eric Big Fund,
Yeah.
his handle. And I think it was them two where Saylor was getting orange pilled.
No, it was with Ross Stevens.
Ross Stevens,
yeah,
you are correct.
It was the MicroStrategy
Goldman
day.
Sachs.
And that was the first. I remember watching that vividly as well, and I remember tweeting during that interview because I was watching it live. I'm like, the body language on Saylor is, my goodness, get ready. He's about to go and buy a shit ton more. And Ross was brilliant, and that's the only ever time Ross has ever given any kind of like podcast or interview like that.
Is
he
it?
won't do anymore. Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
I watched it and I was like, I sent it to every one of my mates. I tried getting everyone to watch it. And you were watching Sailor get orange pilled, really, weren't you? Like, it was amazing to watch because he's such an intelligent bloke, but he's asking the right questions and he was giving it. And you're like, whoa, this is way bigger than I was thinking it was. I'm thinking, we're printing money. Everyone's going to want to buy some. And then you watch that and you're like, oh my God, it solves. For me, it was the first time I'd watched one where I was like, this solves everything. I'd missed all the Max and Stacey and stuff. I didn't really ever find any of it. So that was the first one where, for me, it was a light bulb of like, you're not a lunatic, Scott.
Yep.
These two are very, very intelligent and they are thinking way further ahead than you are. Like, you're not mad for thinking Bitcoin's the future. It was amazing. That was my sort of light bulb video to watch, that one. And that was when I thought I want it on the balance sheet.
Amazing, mate. Well, what I suppose we'll start wrapping it up because we're an hour and a half in. But
yeah.
I'd say, what do you think then? How does the rest of this year play out for you? And then I'll ask you the final question.
I think the rest of this year plays out for me with me personally, you mean, or
yeah.
I'm looking for definitive purpose within this space because I get the sense I'd be useful somewhere, but I'm not sure where. And I have a responsibility of a business that people love and I love, and I want to live forever. And I want to make sure that that's in the best position possible to succeed long term. And I think it's getting to a point now where that's me not being all over it all the time. So I want to have a conversation with them, and I want to get them on board with let's go forward and let's build this resiliently, which doesn't necessarily mean loads of people anymore. Like, it just means profitable, consistent, good. So I want to get that right. And then I think other than that, I want to add in some other elements to my life, which I think orange pilling businesses is something that I think I'd be quite good at, and helping them get onto a Bitcoin standard by using my skill set, which is introducing them to good people. So when you mention Coin Corner, David Parkinson over at Musket, them sort of businesses, by putting them in touch with the right people, there's plenty more, Chris. There's plenty more, but build a network and just sort of, make the right introductions that are worthwhile and valuable to them people. And at some point, maybe that'll turn into like a miniature private equity buying SMEs and cool businesses that I actually really like, and or Bitcoin businesses. I don't know. I've no idea.
Yeah.
Every year when someone asks me what it's going to be like by the end of the year, I say I have no idea. It's been like that throughout my life, to be fair.
Well,
But yeah,
it seems as though you've made some pretty good decisions in the past and are very agile and able to face the challenges and find the problems, find the solutions, which it seems to be like that seems to be the trait of a Bitcoiner, to be honest. That these people that we're meeting at these conferences all share the same kind of traits.
yeah. It's such a good filter for like the kind of traits that you want to spend a lot of time with a lot of people.
So you've done Madeira this year. You've just done cheat code.
Madeira was my first time I ever met Bitcoiners in real life.
That is so like I've heard that so many times about Madeira.
I lived on an island.
For honestly, so many people have told me that was the first time that got in front of other Bitcoiners, and that, by the way, is so huge. And this is why I'm a big proponent of Orange Pill app and getting people on that app and just finding your local Bitcoiner and just start one-on-one down the pub or in the cafe or whatever, but just get in front of another Bitcoiner. But how did you feel after that in Madeira? Like, being around that energy is just
It's
crazy.
unbelievable, because I turned up and I spoke to Ashley and I spoke to Rich beforehand, and sort of said I'll come meet you two guys. Then they put me in a group, and then you get there and you just don't know what to expect, do you? But it turned into like one of the girls in the group keeps referring to it as like a stag do. It's like, oh yeah, like when we went on that stag do in Madeira, and it was like that. It's just like absolutely wild. Everyone's good fun. Everyone was like, you can have a conversation that explores any topic and know that you're going to get a reasonable level of critical thinking and openness to not agree with each other all the time, but just find what might be the best answer to that question. Do you know what I mean? It's just unbelievable. I was so pleased I went, and then as soon as I landed back, I was just going on about it. Like my missus just got like, I was like, here, listen to this and this, and then she was like, she was like, no, I've already watched Sailor, I've watched Jeff Booth as well, I've watched Jack Mallers, and I'm like, oh. She went, yeah, and I'm pissed off. Like, why? She's like, I can't get my Coinbase verification through. So she'd like become a Bitcoiner while I was over there, having heard me for years. But I was speaking to my parents on the way back, and they said other people tend to be focused on price, don't they? And they were like, I think my mum was like in the background, like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna buy when? Let's say, what are you gonna buy when all that Bitcoin goes up in value? Then I was like, time. And neither of them really got it. And I was trying to explain to my dad when we were in Spain, like, you're buying time with your family, your friends, on holiday, time where if business isn't going well, you can just sit back and go, okay, why is it not going well? Rather than shit, how do I deal with that? And it just buys you a bit more like time, flexibility. I go in a bit later now. I walk my dog before I go in and, might go on a jog or come home a bit earlier after doing 8 o'clock till 8 o'clock for 10 years. So I think that's what it buys you. It just buys you time.
So Madeira was great. Then you hit cheat code.
Yeah, I did Madeira. I went to one at Nottingham as well.
Oh, you did, yeah, Carlton.
Bitcoin Fest at Carlton. I went down there, and then I went to Cheat Code as well. Yeah, Cheat Code was a little bit stag do type as well. The first night, I won't name the speaker, but one who everybody loves. We left like a slug and lettuce or something at like 2:30 in the morning, and walking back through town, and he was like, oh, my hotel's that way. I was like, mine's that way. Right. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. And this is someone who, like, everyone in the space, like, what a phenomenal bloke. I'm like, first time I've met him, I didn't think he'd be able to booze that that well. And I woke up in the morning at 10 to 9, and I first thought that went through my mind was, yeah, if I feel this bad, you've heard me Madeira. My voice goes when I've had a heavy session. I was like, if I can't speak, I feel this one go, my head's exploding. I've only got to get there to watch him speak. He's got to get on stage and speak. And I had this dreadful sense that I would get there and there would just be like an empty chair and a microphone. I'd have to go up and be like, I'm really sorry, everyone. But there he was, looking like he'd just come from a yoga retreat, speaking away. I was like, I can't believe it. The guy's an absolute animal. He's a machine. And one thing I thought I'd beat him at, drinking.
Let's put it this way: if it's this, we'll talk again offline. If it's the same guy that I think it is, that I enjoyed some many late night punches with in Madeira when we went over to go and meet the president. Yeah, legend, absolutely.
Yeah. You think, the responsibility he has and all that kind of stuff, and the things he's done. He is an absolute legend.
All right, mate. If you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give it to and why?
You know what? I should rack my brains, but I haven't thought of any. One last orange pill to give. Wow, this is a tough one. Sorry, Daniel, you've completely caught me off a. Here we go. I would give my last orange pill to Lorraine Kelly.
For the global listeners, you've got to explain who she is.
Lorraine Kelly. The reason I would give it to Lorraine Kelly is she is possibly the most trusted voice on TV in the UK for all the people who need orange pilling. The rest will find it. But Lorraine Kelly's listeners are between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. in the morning, and they tend to be at a relaxed stage in life, or they're looking after the kids and all that kind of stuff. But she has a daytime talk show that a lot of people listen to. And I think that the only reason I half jokingly say Lorraine Kelly is because I've joked before that until Lorraine Kelly invites Eamon Holmes and Anton Deck and all these famous TV presenters get orange pilled and start telling other people to buy it, no one will. The average person won't listen to Larry Fink or us. But if Lorraine Kelly says it, it's a done deal.
I love it. First time ever Lorraine Kelly has been pulled out of the hat.
Caught me on the spot. Everybody's got all the others, haven't they? They've all got the presidents and influential podcasters and all that.
I wonder who the UK plebs has a connection to Lorraine Kelly. And if you do, please get in touch. And I'm thinking of Dominic Frisby straight away. He might have an in there somewhere through his little network.
Dominic Frisby has got to have an in to Lorraine Kelly somewhere.
Yes.
He was at Cheat Code. He's a cool guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's awesome. Dom's ace.
Awesome.
He's done, a lot of great work. And I mean, he wrote his Bitcoin book back in 2013. Like,
did he?
Yeah.
I haven't read his Bitcoin book.
Right,
What's
yeah, you've got to get it. God, what's the title is escaping me. Bitcoin, the Future of Money, I think, something like that.
Right.
But yeah, if you just get on Amazon, put Dominic Frisby Bitcoin, it's a good book. And it's great. It's great that you're reading it back in, those early days. And then it's like, nothing until the Bitcoin standard when Safe dropped that in 2018. And everybody still thinks that was like one of the first seminal. It is an amazing book. I mean, we know it. But yeah, Dom was years ahead, but just there wasn't that market penetration. Like, not many people. And his other book, Daylight Robbery, is excellent. And another one he wrote, Life After the State.
I've listened to you and Dominic on about Daylight Robbery.
Yeah, brilliant book. Yeah,
about tax. It's pretty cool. But he's such an interesting guy, and you think the mainstream media insult everyone's intelligence so much with the basic level of detail that they'll allow on any subject. But you just think Dominic Frisby's got kind of a foot in either camp, but the only reason he's not all over mainstream media is because he says stuff that doesn't necessarily fit their agenda
Nope.
quite often. So I'd love to see him all over the TV.
Yeah,
He would.
me too.
He would be great. It'd be a nice sly roundabout way.
Scott, if people want to DM you on Twitter, is that cool? We'll just share your
Yes.
Twitter details.
At BTC only Scott. When I say
Okay.
Bitcoin only Scott to people, they usually type that full one in.
Right.
But yeah, of course. If anyone's got any ideas that might help me find some more purpose in this space, of course, happy to hear them.
Excellent. Love it, mate. And you're going to be at any conferences going forward for the rest of this year?
It's my grandma's birthday when Prague's on, so
Damn.
I'm not at Prague. Someone, David Parkinson, actually mentioned Nashville and a couple others, and I was like, Nashville sounds like a good excuse. It's like, I'm running out of stag do's now. I'm getting to the age where they're all over.
Are you hitting the
Bitcoin
halving
conferences?
Are you hitting the halving party? There's one in London. There's one in Warsaw.
I think I'm going to go to the one in London.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Are you?
We're going to be in Warsaw.
In Warsaw. Is it film? Is it tied in with the film festival? Or
Yeah,
something
so
like
there's a film festival, and there's a lot of brand new films are premiering there, and we'll have the speakers up on stage doing all that. So it's kind of a little mini film fest, and there's going to be an awards ceremony. Obviously, Block 840,000 is going to be a big deal. We hope that is going to be during. Right now, I think it's pitching up at about 6 a.m. So it's like
I've been through 3 halvings. Didn't understand it on the first one. It was only like
right.
the second one. Kind of didn't really know what was going on. This one, like, right, yeah. So we can watch it live.
Yeah, hopefully. But I mean, we just won't need it to be like either later the night before or further into that day. Because 6 a.m. is a bit of a sucker punch for most people. But anyway, yeah. Well, get down to London, mate. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm sure you have a great time down there with the plebs.
Yeah, I'm sure I will.
All right, man. Well,
all right.
Speak again soon.
Much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story.
Yeah, we'll speak soon.
See you, mate.
Bye-bye.